So I did just want to make you aware that I have got other outfits with me other than my waterproofs, but it just seems that they are necessary every day at this stage as we enter the latter stages of my little Advent series here on YouTube. Now I suppose in fairness, we had some incredible conditions at the start of December here in the UK and at the start of my Advent series, but it's all gone to pot a little bit now. However, it's evened out. I will take it. Those conditions were incredible, and this for me, I see as nothing more than just a nice challenge. And in today's video, I want to chat about how I deal with these sorts of conditions with my landscape photography. Grey, flat, miserable, and generally a little bit uninspiring. Well, I'll tell you what isn't uninspiring. Look at that beast. We've got a waterfall there flying off the cliff. Just a little thing, but how cool is that? Wow, look at that. We've got another one there. Absolutely class. So I'd like to think I've got a couple of little tricks up my sleeve in terms of how I approach my landscape photography when I'm shooting in these sorts of conditions, because you've got to remember, I mean, there's not really that much texture in the clouds here. A day like today when there's no light is very different from a day where it's raining and it's stormy and the clouds are really dramatic. That is different, that's incredible. Whereas today, yeah, I just feel like it can be a bit uninspiring to us, can't it? But the first thing that I really try to do is to find a strong subject. So I think at the minute, that is going to be my first port of call. In fairness, I might come back to these waterfalls in a bit, but really good examples. Strong subjects. It could be easy to take photographs that aren't condition dependent. You know, I mean, look at all of the textures in these rocks here and things like that. So yeah, first port of call, like I said, let's try and find a strong subject. Wow, what an incredible otherworldly landscape this is. I mean, if you want to be any sort of landscape on a day like today, this is brilliant, because I mean, we've got strong subjects all over the gaff for this first thing that I do on days like today, you know, with my photography, my first approach. So I am going to grab a quick shot of these waterfalls from here. I'm not sure if it's going to be any good, but we have got a lot of strong subjects, a lot of strong elements in this composition that I think will probably elevate the image a little bit more, even though we don't have any light and we don't really have any drama either. So yeah, obviously we've already got the waterfalls off in the background. I'm using the wide angle lens, so this is the only bit I'm a little bit unsure about. They're kind of getting lost in the background a little bit. However, I feel like we've got a really strong foreground section of the image, which is helping. Just found this nice little rock pool here that is helping. It's kind of long and thin, you know, it's helping to lead us up to the waterfalls somewhat. We've got a few of these little rock formations as well, which are creating some nice diagonals, you know, pointing us in the right direction up to them waterfalls and the beautiful cliffs and the pebble beach. It is nice. I'll tell you what, the textures of those cliffs are absolutely incredible. They are beautiful. Could be poised for some intimate photography as well. But yeah, nice simple one to start off the evening. F11 ISO 64, and it is a 1 second exposure. That shows you how dull it is this evening. I think the general idea when I'm looking for strong subjects on dull days like today, pretty flat light, is just to try and have something interesting in your photograph, something striking. The more striking the subject you can find, the better, because it's all about the viewer's eye, I suppose, of your photograph. What is the viewer looking at? You know, if there's no light, if there's no dramatic conditions, we've not really got any conditions to speak of at all. That to me is always second best. Strong subject, textures, contrast, and I do feel actually that that photograph, although it might not have been the best image in the world, we definitely had all of those elements. We had the strong subjects, we had a lot of subjects actually in the frame, we had strong foreground, we had the textures down here. I mean, look at the textures down in the sand, absolutely gorgeous. And of course the rock pool as well itself was a bit of a strong subject, I suppose. Right, this beach is wonderful. Cornwall is fantastic, even on a flat, lifeless evening like we've got. And yeah, lots more to explore, isn't there? So before I move on and look for some other photographs, I'm just going to send the drone up. So I'll show you what I can see through the eye of the drone. And I'm probably going to go for something like that, as you've seen it there. I want to centralize that bigger waterfall, just a little bit bigger. And I think I mentioned it a second ago, it just feels like such an otherworldly landscape. And I think this particular perspective, which would be impossible to get with my Nikon Z7, I think sort of helps to capture that a little bit. So nice and simple, getting both of them waterfalls, all of them beautiful cliffs. And you know what? As a little bit of a bonus in that particular direction, we might have a little bit of texture in the clouds. So this is one of them where I don't know if I'm making the right decision, but I'm gravitating towards this section down here where you can maybe see off in the background the tide looks like it's hitting up against those rocks. I'm not sure if I'm even going to be able to make it down there, but I feel like I have to give it a go. Whoa. So I think as an image here, this is probably a good example of all of the tips that I've shared with you so far. We've found a strong subject in all of these beautiful sort of tidal patterns. I think it's actually a little bit of a stream that's leading out to sea. It's just anything but straight. It's gorgeous. I'd like to think this image is perhaps a little bit more minimalist, and I've got it in a 5x4 crop. Like I said, just a little bit of the sky, probably only a quarter of the image is the sky, which in itself I'd say is a little bit of a tip as well. If you don't like the sky, if you think it's flat and boring and lifeless, either don't include it or don't have too much of it in your compositions. That one's really simple. And we're at f11, ISO 64 and 1/2 of a second. So in order for me to show you this next little tip on how I deal with sort of lifeless skies, quite specifically like we've got today, I'm actually going to jump into the future for a quick second, back to my camper van, and I'll show you how I deal with skies like this very briefly in Lightroom. So using the raw file of the image that you've just seen, I'm going to show you how I inject a little bit of drama and mood into the skies of my photographs in post-processing here in Lightroom, and ultimately inject a little bit of drama and life into the whole photograph itself. So 3 very simple steps, and I think this makes a massive, massive difference. First things first, before we get into anything, I'm just going to put a little bit of a rudimentary mask onto the sky here, because we only want to work on the sky. I'm going to add a linear gradient as well, just so we've got a nice smooth gradient between the sky and the land. There we go, something like that. Now, step number 1, I'm going to bring the exposure down. Of course, this is only going to affect the sky because we've made a mask on the sky. Already, it's added just a little bit of drama. Step number 2, this is the big one. Dehaze slider, I'm going to move it to the right. I'm going to add a little bit of dehaze, and look how much drama and mood we're bringing back into the sky. So that existed in the first place. We've just got to try and pull it out with the dehaze slider. Now you've got to be careful with this. You don't want to overdo it. But of course, at the same time, it's all very subjective. Third and final step. This is really important to me, but it's optional.
it's very subjective as well, is I don't like the blue tones that the dehaze slider can often bring in. So I'm going to go down to the HSL slider here and just bring down the blues a little bit so it looks a bit more natural. And look at the before and after here. Look at the drama we've brought back in that sky. That is incredible. And a little bit of a bonus step, if you'd like to, is to add another linear gradient on top of it and have it right up at the top of the clouds of the sky. I do this now and again, and darken it down even more. Absolutely brilliant.
So yeah, I hope that was helpful. It's something that I try to do a lot. You do have to be careful with it, you know, how far you push the dehaze slider and things like that. But sometimes you can get some really, really good results. So yeah, oh, man, I am loving this location, and I'm going to keep wandering about and just keep an open mind. So just checking in with you on the run up till Christmas. I hope you are all doing well, and I really hope you're enjoying the Advent series here. As I've been saying all along, please do hit the subscribe button. Not only does it really help to support the channel, if you hit the little notification bell as well, you will get notifications when I release any of these videos. But all in all, as always, thank you very much for your continued support and all your wonderful engagement and comments. We are getting closer to the rocks that have got water around them. Oh yes, this is so much fun. Here's the water. Oh, my camera's going to be all right. So you can probably tell what I'm doing here. Using the wave as it comes in as a little bit of a leading line, which I guess is another little bit of a tip. Think back to when I was saying about trying to find a strong subject. It's not all about a subject in terms of a tree or a rock or something like that. Think about elements. Elements for me, if you can find a strong element in your composition, it can really help on dull days like we've got today. So here, and see, I need to move back this way a bit now because I'm assuming the tide's on its way in and my little line of salt bubbles, whatever they are, keeps moving back. But as you can see, nice and simple, as that wave comes in, I'm sort of grabbing the shot at a slowish shutter speed just to smooth things out, and that line is leading us into all of them beautiful rocks and cliffs, and oh, it's wonderful. And again, I'll try my best to bring a little bit of texture out of that sky in Lightroom. Also, if anyone knows what that is in the center of the frame, sorry, it's not the best picture. Looks like a huge satellite. I'm assuming it's something to do with weather. Please do let me know. It's a really cool looking subject. I think actually it will be in the background of this photograph. So I'm going to head back up to where the waterfalls were, actually, just back towards the van, and keep my eyes peeled. I mean, I'm loving all the textures and the rocks of these cliffs, like I've been saying, and ooh, yeah, if you've been watching me recently, you'll know I've just been enjoying a few little intimate shots, so it's great. I feel like it's broadened my horizons a little bit as a photographer, and yeah, this looks like a really good opportunity to get that sort of shot, but I'll keep an open mind and we'll see what we see. Now, I usually have my 24-200 lens on my camera pretty much all the time. So for me, if I'm wanting to size up the potential for a wide angle image, sometimes I just use the wide angle on my iPhone just to give me a rough idea of whether or not it'd be worth it. And you can see here for this shot, I'm not sure. I was just thinking about getting this sort of rock pool here you could see down in the foreground like that. But it looks a little bit too heavy over here on the left-hand side, what with the cliffs, and then nothing over on this right-hand side to balance it out, you know, but it was worth a stop. So I think, quite ironically, as the evening has progressed, a little bit more texture and drama actually has developed up there in the clouds, which sort of goes against the whole point that I was trying to talk about in today's video about dull, lifeless days. But, I mean, look, that may be a little bit of a point in itself. Is when I first came out here, it was dull, it was lifeless. That's what gave me the idea to share a few tips in this video, but it's changed. And that can always happen, especially places like this where the weather conditions just famously change so quickly. And as I always say, if you don't get out, you'll never know. If you don't get out with your camera, you'll never take a photograph. It sounds daft, but it's so true. Now, I'm mad to find a pub in the local area, so I'll leave you there. Thank you so very much for your support. Drop me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you whilst I'm sat in my van. And like I said earlier, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell. It would mean a lot to me to have you along right up until Christmas Eve. Cheers, ladies and gents, and I shall see you on the next adventure. Out.